Berlin, capital of the Federal Republic of Germany and seat of the federal government. Since the government moved from Bonn to Berlin, the city on the Spree has become one of Europe's most important political centers. The Federal Chancellery is located in the government district in the heart of Berlin. From here, Angela Merkel presides over affairs of state. The Federal Chancellery at Willy-Brandt-Straße 1 was designed by architects Axel Schultes and Charlotte Frank. Unique in its form, it is intended to symbolize democratic Germany. In May 2001, after almost 4 years of construction, the new Chancellery was inaugurated. The Chancellery is located at the heart of what is known as the Band des Bundes, or Federal Ribbon, which connects the former eastern and western part of the city across the river Spree. The ribbon also includes 2 parliamentary buildings, the Paul-Löbe building and the Marie-Elisabeth Lüders building. Located to the left and right of the main Chancellery building are the 2 long administrative wings, which house 370 offices. The glazed-over interior courtyards and glass facades provide natural light, but most importantly, they convey transparency. Overall, the building complex is 36 meters high and 335 meters long. The Spree Bridge leads to the Chancellery Park with the adjacent heliport. The Chancellor uses a Federal Police or Federal Armed Forces helicopter for some appointments. The first preparations for the day start early in the morning. Most of the 550 or so employees here work in the background. The Chancellery is divided into 7 Directorates General. They are the heart of the organization, as well as the interface between the Chancellery and all federal ministries. Their role is to advise the Chancellor and the head of the Chancellery in all areas of politics. Directorate General 1 is responsible for justice and home affairs policy. Directorate General 2 covers foreign, security and development policy. Directorate General 3 deals with social affairs, health, the labour market, infrastructure and society. Directorate General 4 takes care of economic, financial and energy policy, while Directorate General 5 is responsible for European policy. Directorate General 6 includes political planning, innovation, digital policy and strategic IT management. Finally, Directorate General 7 coordinates the Federal Intelligence Services. The Federal Chancellery holds the government as a whole together. That's why it has separate units, the divisions. Each division is responsible for a ministry in the federal government. As head of the Federal Chancellery, I provide assistance when the ministries have trouble deciding on a common approach. If there is need for coordination between federal and land governments, or when we have international challenges that need to be overcome, then I assist the Chancellor with the goal of finding the right solution and implementing it within the framework of her policy-making power. A great thing about the Chancellery is that we are responsible for policy planning and strategic foresight. That means that alongside our day-to-day work, we also look to the future and ask ourselves where our country should be headed. There's the future of digitalization, how we maintain prosperity, how we safeguard our climate. It's really fascinating to work on such important topics here at the Chancellery.
wie sichern wir unser Klima. Also es ist auch konzeptionell in den großen Linien hochspannend, am Kanzleramt zu arbeiten.
Once a week, the TV lighting in the cabinet room is switched on. That's when the Federal Cabinet meets here to discuss current topics and approve bills. In the middle of the large table is a four-sided clock, a gift from Konrad Adenauer to his cabinet. Next to it, there's an old bell, which is only rung at the beginning of a new legislative period. In addition to the Chancellor, all 15 federal ministers, the government spokesperson and the ministers of state sit at the cabinet table. Annette Wiedmann-Mautz is Federal Government Commissioner for Migration, Refugees and Integration. Monika Grütters is Federal Government Commissioner for Culture and the Media. Her colleague Dorothee Beer looks after digital affairs. Hendrik Hoppenstedt coordinates cooperation between the federal government and the Länder. State Secretary Johannes Geismann is Commissioner for the Federal Intelligence Services. The head of the Federal Chancellery issues invitations to the cabinet meetings and sets the agenda. Angela Merkel's office is on the 7th floor. In 2005, she was elected Chancellor by the Bundestag and moved in here.
Besonders gefallen hat mir die Größe des Zimmers.
I especially liked the size of the room because I had never had such a huge office, not to mention one with such a great view of the Tiergarten and Reichstag building. The huge desk felt a bit strange, and that's why I decided to do my usual work at the front table rather than at this desk. I only sit here when I talk to foreign government partners on the phone. Oskar Kokoschka's portrait of Konrad Adenauer as the first federal chancellor is, of course, a very intense picture. It reminds you every day of the history of the Federal Republic of Germany, which we continue to write today. This photograph commemorates the 20th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. My political work is of course connected to German unity and was only made possible by the fall of the wall. And in addition to the great courage demonstrated by East German population, wise politicians such as Helmut Kohl, George Bush Sr. and Mikhail Gorbachev made it possible for us to live together peacefully and democratically reunited today. And this photo is a reminder of that. I must say, I do like the view from my office window. The view of the Reichstag building, which I have from my office and we have from the cabinet room, is of course a constant reminder to us that it's Parliament that makes the laws and we, as the government, execute them later on. The fourth floor, the Situation and Crisis Center, a work area that is staffed around the clock. Employees constantly evaluate news from around the world and inform the Chancellor, the head of the Federal Chancellery, and the closest advisors about the current situation. The Music Corps of the Federal Armed Forces arrives. The Guard of Honor marches in step into the large ceremonial courtyard in front of the main entrance, where the Chancellor receives foreign heads of state almost every week. Guests are always welcomed with military honors, whenever they are new to their office or have been re-elected. This is a symbolic sign of respect, with a strictly regulated procedure.
Gewehr! Ab!
Interpreters are essential for international meetings. Only with their help can the Chancellor and her state guests exchange ideas in their native language.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I would like
to make the process easier, the interpreters' booths have been integrated into the small cabinet room.
Very warm welcome also to our
Preparations for a working dinner. Most state visitors to the Federal Chancellery receive hospitality, and the food often comes from the Chancellery kitchen. Working meals usually take place on the 8th floor and are an ideal occasion for in-depth political talks. The press area. A familiar place for journalists. This is where the Chancellor and her guests provide information about the outcome of their talks and answer questions from the media. We talked about demographic change, a challenge we both face. The Federal Eagle on one of the two lecterns indicates that this is where the Chancellor stands. But the Federal Chancellery is not only open to state guests. Members of the public can, for instance, look behind the scenes on the open day. A very warm welcome to our open day visitors here at the Federal Chancellery. Another tradition is the reception held for the winners of the National Jugendforscht competition for young research. In addition to the award for the most original work, the Chancellor also answers many questions from the young scientists. And on Girls' Day, young women can try their hand at scientific, practical and technical occupations in German companies. Angela Merkel invites them to the Chancellery every year at the start of the day. The Chancellor is also the patron of Start Social. Each year, this nationwide competition promotes voluntary work by awarding grants and mentoring sessions with experts. For all visitors, there is a permanent exhibition on the ground floor showing official gifts from all over the world. It includes, for example, a reproduction of John F. Kennedy's notes for his legendary speech in Berlin.
The proudest boast is, Ich bin ein Berliner.
The art in the Federal Chancellery is much more than just decoration. It reflects contemporary artistic creativity and is also intended to be thought-provoking. One such artwork is the 90-ton iron sculpture Berlin by Eduardo Chillida. It embodies the idea of union and division. The Chancellor's Gallery dates back to an idea by former Chancellor Helmut Schmidt. It contains portraits of the 7 previous Chancellors, from Gerhard Schröder to Konrad Adenauer. The Federal Chancellery. It has become symbolic of an open, diverse and democratic Germany, at the heart of Berlin and the heart of Europe.